We begin again this morning with a little pulpit talk, I'll call it, about what the pulpit is or isn't. We believe in the freedom of conscience and the capacity of the individual for thought and action. We might sometimes say, hey, if you keep behaving this way, you can't hang here anymore because that's not how we behave. But we don't do that from a place of saying we have the authority to dictate right action, but rather from process of coming into an agreement or covenant of how we agree to be together. And when we who have agreed to do this don't act that way, that we all agreed to act, we might be reminded of this, brought back into the circle of right behavior and relationship. And if we do not want to engage in this circle of right relationship, asked to leave. Now, why start here? Well, because I think it's important to remind us that it is, in fact, not my job to tell you what to do, that we do not believe a minister has the moral authority to dictate to someone how to live. Now, I might sometimes suggest we consider doing something or remind us that we all agreed to behave a certain way, which is respectively towards one another. And I might say, hey, if we want to create more love and justice in the world, perhaps we could do this thing individually or collectively. Or perhaps if we're not going to do this thing, we might want to question if we're living into our values or not, right? I might say, man, it would be really effective in shifting our local reality to a more just and loving one if all of us took our power and did this thing together. And that is different than a minister having the moral authority to tell someone what is right and wrong to do, right? So today, I'm going to talk about some hard realities. And I'm not going to give you an easy list of things to do to try and make them better or so you can feel better about the hard things and not have them weigh on your heart and mind. I will try and provide context and a general direction, but no easy lists will be given. Just a warning. This is because there are hard things in the world, and I deeply trust you all to be able to hold hard things. In fact, I know that you are already doing so. And in fact, I also believe that by holding these hard things, we collectively will do more good when we know them. Now, you can also research hard things alone, and I think part of what we like to be about here is holding those hard things together, because that makes holding them a bit easier, knowing that we don't hold them alone. We'd also like to start doing more good together, because when a whole lot of people do good together, we make more good, right? And not every sermon can be a call to how to make more good. This one is a call to see, witness, and hear the hard. Today we have two hard realities, facts of exploitation, we will look at together. First, we look to the Democratic Republic of Congo. The DRC has made the news recently as increased clashes between warring factions in February caused an additional 1 million people to be internally displaced within their country. An additional because 6.4 million had already been displaced, according to the World Food Program, who also tells us that 1 in 4 people are at crisis levels of hunger or worse. The World Bank states that the DRC is one of the 5 poorest countries in the world, and that in 2023, 3/4 of the population lived on less than $2.15 per day. I quote now from the World Bank. DRC is endowed with exceptional natural resources, including minerals such as cobalt and copper, hydropower potential, significant arable land, immense biodiversity, and the world's second largest rainforest. Most people in the DRC have not benefited from this wealth. That was still in the quote from the World Bank. The World Bank saying most people in the DRC have not benefited from this wealth. They continue. A long history of conflict, political upheaval, instability, and authoritarian rule have led to a grave, ongoing humanitarian crisis. In addition, there has been forced displacement of populations. These features have not changed significantly since the end of the Congo Wars in 2003. End quote. The Congo Wars between these warring factions began in 1996, and in the eastern DRC, the most resource-rich area, millions have been killed over the past 3 decades. The Second Congo War, which lasted from 1998 to 2002, is widely considered the deadliest in human history since World War II. Over 3 million people died from war and resulting humanitarian disasters. Now, it would be incomplete to imply that the wars and continuing and currently escalating violence were internal, local factions that were at war without outside global corporate interests involved. For we remember, the DRC is one of the most resource-rich nation homes to metal and rare earth minerals used for electronics. And it's becoming increasingly desirable due to batteries for items like phones, electric cars, and artificial intelligence. There have been many cases of exploitive labor practices, including child labor, that are required to obtain, or that have been used to obtain these precious minerals. And as the World Bank said, the riches of this nation are making others rich and only leaving the people of the Congo with more violence, death, hunger, and poverty. So let us be very, very critical when we hear the term clean energy talked of generally, right? And let us remember that a concept of a resource curse, is a reality for many, right? It's been true for coal country and mining here in the United States, and it's true for mining in the DRC. Okay. Without resolve or relief, we move to our second hard truth, which, though we all have electronics we use daily, might feel like a more direct hit to some of you as it did to me. This year, Trader Joe's, my friends, along with Starbucks, I know, I'm sorry. This year, Trader Joe's, Starbucks, Amazon, and SpaceX, Elon Musk's company, were all accused of violating labor law for anti-union activities by the National Labor Relations Board. Now, here's where it gets interesting. In February, each of these companies, represented by the same law firm, filed lawsuits that say the claims filed against them and the entire National Labor Relations Board are unconstitutional. The National Labor Relations Board was created as a result of the National Labor Relations Act of 1935. The board exists to ensure fair labor practices are being upheld and that workplace democracy can exist. They investigate when employees, unions, or employers bring cases of wrongdoing to them. Essentially, they exist to try and prevent domestic exploitation of workers in the private sector. They are also an independent federal agency. So, if one of the global systemic issues we have in our world today is that people doing work are being exploited, as they are so clearly in the DRC, and has happened so clearly too to people here who are citizens and those who are not, if this is one of our big issues, And we have here in our country an independent agency of the federal government that is here to try and prevent some of this exploitation. Their whole purpose is to try and prevent exploitation of workers. We must take note when several major corporations are trying to have this body's power diminished or just have it eliminated altogether, right? Some scary stuff. So, what are we to do about this? You might choose to stop shopping at Trader Joe's or getting coffee at Starbucks or buying things on Amazon. You might look at where the minerals needed to make your own electronics or those you get in the future come from. And even if every single one of us in this room and online did that right now, these corporations would not care, right? It would not affect their bottom line. It would not give us any negotiating power. And it's important to name that not all of us have the privilege to pay for more ethically made goods in our current system, right? It might be the choice that feels right to us individually not to partake. And if that's true, for sure do it. I am definitely not telling you not to. Everything matters. And we need to accept that just this act alone does not create lasting systemic change. Now, if every UU congregation in the country got all its congregants to boycott Trader Joe's, and we had a unified strategy for media attention and activism, that, I think, could be effective against Trader Joe's at least. Because gloriously not all, thank goodness, but many of us, myself included, fit the stereotypical demographic of Trader Joe shoppers, right? Hello. Now, that sermon on strategic action and actually having an action that we can join in to bring about the world we long for is, I'm sorry, still not today's sermon, my good people. I just wanted us to have a little glimmer of what it might feel like. Today, we will, however, try to contextualize a little bit. So in our reading today, Reverend Karen up in Burlington, Vermont, said that we are all swimming in a sea of moral injury. Now, moral injury occurs when in our reality, we are unable to live out our values, and this causes us to believe that we are not the moral people we thought ourselves to be. Many of us have experienced this, right? Now, Reverend Karen states that our reality is late-stage capitalism, and because we are living in late-stage capitalism, we are surrounded by so much poverty and economic inequity, and that is our economic reality that is beyond our capacity to change, and therefore, we incur moral injury because we are not able to fully live out our values in our current economic system. Now, what the heck does she mean by late-stage capitalism? There are a lot of different definitions, and for our purpose here today and the fact that my sermon shall soon be ending, it comes from economic theory and has its origins in Marxist economic theory in particular. Now, it states that the economic expansion that we are in, that began after World War II, when multinational companies brought growth of the global circulation of capital, and most importantly, when there was an increase in corporate profits and wealth of particular individuals, particularly in the West. So essentially, it's an economic reality where corporations and a small number of individuals continue to get richer and richer while the rest of us get poorer and poorer. Reverend Karen was arguing, I believe, that because we are all living in this economic system right now, where global corporations have a lot of power, and there is more power and wealth being held by a smaller number of individuals. Because of this, poverty, hunger, and exploitation are on the rise. And because this economic system is so horrifyingly massive and beyond our reach, we are left feeling hopeless of our capacity to create more goodness, to right the exploitive relationships that are too many to count on our interdependent web of life. Now, I do not have a good, simple answer about what we can do about exploitation. I'm not sure if there is one. I do trust that we can ourselves and as a community live in this awful feeling tension. For we are strong, and the life of being human is the life of living in tension. And so we live in the moral and ethical tension of our reality and what we believe. And I believe that living in this tension will help us to bring greater moral resolve to our world and to ourselves. For I know that when we refuse to see or learn or acknowledge the exploitive realities we live in, then we are truly unable to do nothing, because we are not acknowledging reality. It might feel safer in a way as we're not seeing the pain and harm, but it doesn't enable us to do anything to change our reality. We, here now, will not be able to change the whole global economic system we are currently operating under to one that is more just and equitable. And we here now, each of us in our own ways, and someday not too far away all together, we can do something, which is a whole lot better than nothing, right? The Talmud states, whoever saves one life saves the world entire. Whoever saves one life saves the world entire. One life is indeed one whole world. Each life is bound to all others inextricably, and is therefore in all others and everything. One life is the world entire. So may we, my people, see clearly and not hide our eyes. May we hear the cries and not plug our ears. May we do what it is we are capable of doing, knowing one life holds the world entire.